Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. You know, the idea of spawning monsters is not a new one. Matter of fact, we could take it for granted. It appears in so many video games, right? But it even appears in board games like Fantasy Flight's Descent. But the thing is, most of people's first instance of seeing this idea in action was a video game called Gauntlet made in 1985, and it was a big hit. The idea, of course, you're going up against monsters, they keep coming out, and you slowly get to the point where you can take care of the generator and move forward. However, that is actually not the first instance of this idea. And I'm not saying that this is the first instance, but I don't know of any other example. So if you know of one, please let me know in the comments down below. But this was made in 1980, 5 years prior to Gauntlet. So today, I'm going to be talking to you about my review of Dimension Demons from Metagaming. All right, so here we have the map loaded up in the TFT, and basically I have a link of this whole thing down below for you to go ahead and play. And now there's another link down below of another person that actually made one of these before me that actually has a modernized version of the map and counters and even miniatures if you want. So I got a link for that person's hard work down below as well. But for the sake of this demonstration, showing you what I seen for the first time, we're going to be using this. Okay, so basically, when I first seen this, if you remember my unboxing video, I thought this was a dimensional gate, and the demons would just kind of travel on over here and invade the human world. But that's not exactly what happens here. This is actually not a barrier for anything other than to separate the two boards. Okay, this is just fancy stuff. There is not a glitter stream in the air as they come on over. That's not it at all. Basically, this is a mirrored universe. So basically, what it means is if this demon's here on 70 hex 0704 and they transfer over and they hit the hex that they're supposed to, because they do scatter. But let's say they hit the hex they're supposed to, they would actually land on hex 0704 on the human side. As you can see, it's very mirrored. So 906 is over here, 906 is over here, and so on and so on. Now, my small critique with this, and it's really an artistic one, is I would like to see more of a dimensional difference because it is Dimension Demons, right? And what I just mean is if a hex is here, or if a demon's here on 1714, they would actually be here. You know, it's almost like they're layered on top of each other. It makes it a little bit more easy to visualize it. But then again, maybe that's why they did the mirror universe, just to make it a little bit more complicated. I mean, that's not really hard to figure out. But then again, seeing it exactly layered on top of each other would be a little bit easier. So maybe that's why they didn't do it. Or maybe it was artistic. I'm not sure. Tell me what you think in the comments down below. So that's pretty interesting right there. But anyway, these guys all travel by these interdimensional portals. And let's go over to the units right now and talk about what they're all about. Okay, so let's go over the units real quick here. Now, the thing is, both sides only have 3 different types of units. It's pretty interesting. For the demons, this is the basic demon here, and it's worth 7 points. And then you have the breeders here, which are worth 10 points, and you have the dimensional tesseract, which is worth 20 points. And then you have the humans over here, the human infantry, and then you have, I forgot how much are those worth, 5, 12, and 14. Okay, so 5 points for each infantry, 12 points for each slider, which is a GEV or a hovercraft, and the heavy tanks or the thumpers are worth 14. So, you know, GEVs are called sliders, heavy tanks are called thumpers, infantry, freaking grunts, they don't deserve a nickname. No respect. But you'll notice a really interesting thing here, though, that the demon player gets 130 points worth of units to attack with. The human player gets 100. Of course, they get some benefits because they are defending, and I'll get over how important that is in a little bit. But also because it's hard to actually spend exact amount. Now, for the Terran player, that's not so much. But for the demons, it's like you get 130, but with those weird numbers, like, well, the breeder and the tesseract is like 10 and 20 points, but it's because the demons themselves are worth 7. It's like you're never really going to hit exactly 130 or even close. So you're gonna it's about how much you're gonna give up, I guess, a little bit. It's just kind of weird number there. But anyway, let's go over how movement works into the dimensions. All right, so the object of the game is for the demon player to come on over to the human world and wipe out everybody. That's just it. And of course, the human player can actually win by wiping out all the demon units as well. But alternatively, the human player can also win by keeping the demons from establishing a foothold in the human world for 5 turns in a row. If they can do that, they also win the game. All right, they can win on turn 5 technically. So let's talk about how the demons come over to the human world. Basically, any unit that starts their turn on the Tesseract can come on over to the human world, and you would think by logic that they just come over to the mirror hex and that's it. Well, that's not entirely true. You can actually say that you can transfer them anywhere on the map at all. All right. The difference is how far they scatter. All right. So basically, that is you can actually have a unit transfer all the way across the board over here if you want. They're just going to scatter a lot more. So let's look at the chart here. So you roll based on the distance between the mirror hex to the target hex, and then you get a result. Basically, H means you hit the exact spot you wanted, and any number means you scatter that many hexes, and then you roll again to see which direction. And as you can see from the chart there, even if you're going dead to the middle of the mirror hex, you're still got a chance of scattering pretty far. Okay, and that is a significant thing, because the thing is, at the end of the turn, basically, let's say we scatter to, or we move or scatter over here. Let's say at the end of the turn we're here. At the end of the turn, if there is not a Tesseract in the human world, all demons actually transfer back to the demon world, and of course it's a mirror, so it would go to the mirror's hex. All right. So the question must be asked, though. Wait a minute. If they pop back, if there's no Tesseract here, and the Tesseracts can't move, how do you get a Tesseract over? Well, that happens after. And this is really the key part of the game. They try to get a demon into a city. Once they move into a city, they can put a Tesseract right there immediately, and now they never have to worry about popping back unless that Tesseract gets destroyed. So it's an interesting thing. At first, the humans are defending the cities, but as soon as the demons get a city, then they're the ones defending the cities. And that's pretty interesting. And these Tesseracts can be captured by the human players as well. Okay, they just roll a die on their turn if they can get to it. They got to be on the hex. And then on a 1 or 2, they get it. Otherwise, it's destroyed. And that helps them get over to the demon side. But of course, they probably would most likely want to destroy them. Okay, so some more information about jumping here. Basically, one of the things about scattering is you can't scatter off the board. So if you were to scatter here 6 hexes to the south, basically you just end up here. Okay, now that seems a little bit weird, but there's some technical mumbo jumbo that you could say that is around the whole area. That's just the envelope, the window that you can jump into. Okay, and it stops you from going any further. And that's fine. Of course, you can make alternate rules, or say you wrap around the world or whatever. But basically, this leads to some interesting situations, especially around units that are around the edge of the world, of course. Because what happens when you jump and you land into another unit, both units are gone. Okay, so that leads to some interesting things, especially when the demons get breeders over on the human side of the world. Because the thing about breeders, and this is an interesting part of the game, because I think this might be one of the very first ideas of spawning that may have, in games. You see them all the time in video games, spawn points, right? Like the old video game Gauntlet, even. You might have thought that that's the first time I've ever heard of spawning. Nope, it might have actually been dimension demons, because that's what happens here. When a breeder is here, basically on their turn, I guess I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I gotta explain it anyway. They get a special demon that has a B on it, which means they're bred in the human world. And the thing is, even if this Tesseract's gone, they get to stay. Interesting enough. Okay, so that's why these, and it's 1 a turn. All right. And because the humans only have 100 points of units, that's going to be a thing. So you actually don't mind anybody that might be on over here jumping on over and just landing on one and taking them out. You find a crowd, just jump into it. So that's a pretty interesting concept there. Now, combat's pretty straightforward. It uses a combat ratio table and all that. But tell me what you think about these counters, okay? It's not really a biggest deal, but tell me what you think in the comments down below if you would change this. Because here's how these are derived, all right? On the top is the range of the unit. On the bottom left is its attack strength, and on the bottom right is its movement, okay? Now, we're all used to attack strength being on the bottom left and movement being on the bottom right to a lot of games, right? But the thing is, there's that dash on the bottom, and it kind of says that these two belong together. Technically, I would think firepower and range go together, right? So it's kind of a weird pick there. Or would you choose like all 3 numbers at the bottom, like most war games, and just have the picture on top? So it's a kind of a different thing that they were messing with here, and I just want to know what you think. But anyway, yeah, it is pretty straightforward. The demons definitely have a one-on-one advantage with most things, except for maybe the big tanks with an attack power 6, because there is no defense. It's just strict attack to attack strength. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, and the tanks are really nasty because they do have that range of 6 as well as a firepower of 6. So they got the demons on a 2-to-1 ratio. There's a lot of disruptions in this game that you'll find in my scenario report when I play it out. Just a lot of that going on. You really have to gang up on somebody to just eliminate them. But the thing is, since there's not really a turn limit in this game, it really doesn't matter too much for maybe the demon player, as long as they don't get wiped off the board so they can bring their breeders on and then things start rolling. It's the human player that really has to worry about ganging up and making sure they're gone. Now, for the other little pieces of information, as well as some more tactical ideas, I'm going to use that in my scenario report where you go over with me turn by turn over a full game of Dimension Demons, okay? And that way you can learn as you go and you can see what I'm doing and learn what I'm doing right and learn what I'm doing wrong, right? Because I definitely do some things wrong here, okay? But that's okay. That's the best way to learn. You know, you read the rules, you try to get an idea, but you just dive in. And you learn more from aha moments more than you ever will just reading it 10,000 times. It just won't happen as well. Anyway, this is definitely worth going over before I go, though. Okay, this turn sequence, it is significant. See, the thing is, most games work, war games work, I go, you go, right? It's I go and I fire, I move and fire, then you move and fire, okay? Now, this game allows defensive fire first, which is really interesting. Now, that's not unusual either, really. I mean, games like the Columbia block system definitely allows defenders to fire first in some cases. You know, so it's not like an original thing, but just see how this turn sequence goes, and you'll see it. So let's go over this here. So here's we go over a demon player's turn. And by the way, the demon player's turn is the exact same thing as the human player's turn. It's important to go over it as the demon player here for the example. All right, so the first thing the demon player does is does transdimensional projection. Okay, sends people over by the tesseract, by way of the tesseract. Next is the demon movement, just regular movement for the demons. Then it's human offensive, human defensive fire. Okay, they get to fire anybody in range. Bam, just anybody that's in that can be a target. So they get first dibs. Then the demons get to attack. Okay, not that big of a deal so far. Okay, let's continue. Then the demons get disruption recovery, any units that were disrupted from before. Then if demons aren't around the Tesseract in the human world, they go back to their home world, okay? So their turn's done. Simple enough. This is where it gets interesting. Then it goes into the human player where they're doing the exact same sequence, okay? But note that again, the demons get to fire before the humans do because it's demons' defensive fire now. So what's that mean? It means technically, in a way, they could possibly fire twice at units. So in before, the humans got defensive fire, then the demons got finally their offensive fire afterwards, and then on the next turn, the demons get to fire again before the humans do. Now, mind you, the humans can move in between that time and get out of range. But technically, if it's a close fisticuffs thing, the demons are going to fire twice. And then again, at the same time, the humans are going to fire twice on their turn. So it's something to really consider. And that's why I think there's a lot of disruptive units in this game. When we look at the, if I look at the combat ratio chart, there's a good bit of disruptions there and no results. You really got to gang up, and like in most war games, you really do have to gang up to get a completely eliminated result. So I just always thought that was interesting that they get to fire twice. Now I found that to really to sway things up a little bit, and you might want to just move away. You don't want to just sit there in fisticuffs if they're going to get a clean shot at you to knock you out, because you don't have to fire at the person that's firing at you. You can fire at anybody in range. All right, and it's not one-on-one. You can, of course, gang up on them and such. It would be one thing if if you're being attacked, it's like, okay, I will attack that unit and be at 1 to 2 odds or something like that, which you could do as an optional rule if you want, but it's definitely different. But it's just one of those things that I do like about these games. They are not afraid to experiment, and I had definitely heard that because these games were small and they weren't that much to print, it wasn't bad to experiment. They didn't have to worry about putting it all on the line as they did back in the day with any kind of printing. You don't even have to put it on the line, all on the line anymore with printing games as it is, unless you got some kind of big licensing deal or something like that. Printing a game is not that difficult anymore, especially with companies like the Game Crafter that are around. You can make units of 100, because before you'd have to make 500. And Columbia Games has got a whole thing where they have special boxes that actually flatten out, because of their storage, so they don't have to have a warehouse full of games all the time. They just create them as they're needed. It's pretty interesting concept of how that works, and it's really helped keep them alive for years. But then again, production as it is has gone up, and they're actually going to China with their Rommel in the Desert game. They're just trying to finish that up right now, and it's looking nice. I can tell you right now, that map, the pieces, it is going to be a different kind of thing. So if you actually were a fan of Columbia Games and you've seen Rommel in the Desert, you're definitely going to like that. So anyway, guys, that is Dimension Demons. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.